This is part 2 of Rhaegar. In part 1, we discuss Rhaegar's life up until 281 AC. By this time, Rhaegar had become a skilled fighter, married Princess Ilia Martell, and had a daughter named Rhaenys. But there was also significant problems in Rhaegar's life. His relationship with his father, Aerys II, was incredibly strained. As Aerys' madness and paranoia grew, so did the distance between the two men. Some feared another Targaryen civil war would break out as people flocked to either man's side. In 281 AC, the Tourney of Harrenhal would take place. The plans for this great tourney were announced by Lord Walter Went in late 280 AC to celebrate his maiden daughter's name day, or so he claimed. There's still speculation on the Tourney of Harrenhal, and at this point, a lot of readers are tired of hearing about the event. Tales of plots and conspiracies, betrayals and rebellions, infidelities, secrets, and mysteries surround this event, both in the books and among those that read the books. However, almost all of this is opinions or speculation based on incomplete information. What is known is that the tourney was announced after Lord Walter Went's younger brother, Sir Oswald Went, a Knight of the King's Guard, visited him. The tourney was planned to be even more magnificent than Lord Tywin's tourney to celebrate Aerys II's 10 years on the throne. Lord Went offered prizes 3 times as large as those given at that anniversary tourney. As it was believed Lord Went didn't have the funds for such prizes, someone else was supporting him. There are a lot of names thrown out trying to guess who exactly this shadow host was. The most likely was Rhaegar himself. The tale goes that Rhaegar used his loyal friend and Kingsguard, Oswell Went, to convince his brother to hold the tourney. Rhaegar funded the tourney with lavish prizes to entice lords and knights from all over the 7 kingdoms. And the guess is that he did all this to gather as many great lords of the realm as possible to hold an informal great council, where they could discuss his father's growing madness and put forth a regency or forced abdication. On Rhaegar's part, this was a dangerous game. Aerys II had his master of whisperers, Varys, and many were willing to rat on Rhaegar to get on the good side of Aerys II, or retain the wealth and power they had through Aerys II staying in power. If any of Aerys' supporters had heard rumors of Rhaegar's plans, they would have told his father, leading to Rhaegar's downfall. However, regardless if Aerys II knew or suspected what Rhaegar supposedly was planning, the king was still fearful of the tourney and a gathering of so many lords and knights. Some counseled Aerys II to forbid the tourney, or prohibit any further tourneys in the future. However, others cautioned him that tourneys were so loved by the small folk that prohibiting them would lower his popularity. So in the end, Aerys II decided to attend the tourney, perhaps thinking that they couldn't plot against him while he was there. So in 281 AC, the grand tourney was held. The finest knights and noble lords attended, and for 7 days, they competed. During this entire tourney, Rhaegar's father's madness was plain for everyone to see. In sharp contrast, Rhaegar appeared at the tournament and surprised the realm by putting on his armor, as he didn't normally compete in tournaments. The prince defeated every opponent he faced, including 4 Kingsguards. And here the realm saw a true warrior with none of his father's madness. At night during the feast, Rhaegar played his harp and made women weep, including Lyanna Stark. On the final day of the tournament, and the final tilt, Rhaegar on horse Barristan Selmy, regarded as the finest lance in all the 7 kingdoms, and he was declared the champion of the tourney. Maesters report the cheers of the crowd were deafening when Rhaegar won, but Aerys II didn't join them this time. Instead of being proud of his son, he saw Rhaegar's skills as a threat. Lords whispered in Aerys' ear that Rhaegar had entered the tourney to curry favor with the commons and remind the assembled lords that he was a skilled warrior, a true heir to Aegon the Conqueror. This talk was further inflamed when Rhaegar, after winning the tourney, rode past his own wife and declared Lyanna Stark the Queen of Love and Beauty, placing a garland of blue roses in her lap with the tip of his lance. They whispered to Aerys, why would the prince insult his own wife? Unless it was to help him gain the Iron Throne. They suggested to him that Rhaegar was trying to win the allegiance of Winterfell. Yet when Rhaegar placed the blue winter roses on Lyanna's lap, all smiles died. Lyanna's brothers were deeply upset, and her eldest brother had to be restrained, taking it as a slight on her honor as she was currently betrothed to Robert Baratheon. And even though Robert Baratheon laughed the incident off, some believe he brooded on the insult and began to hate Rhaegar. So if Rhaegar had truly crowned Lyanna at the tourney to win the favor of Winterfell, it didn't appear to work. But the tournament ended, and life went on. Shortly after the tourney, Rhaegar's second child, Aegon, was born. A comet was seen above King's Landing the night Aegon was conceived, and Rhaegar believed this meant the child was the prince that was promised. A belief Maester Aemon, Rhaegar's great-great-uncle, was also aware of, though Aemon thought at first Rhaegar was the prince that was promised, and would later believe that it was Daenerys, Rhaegar's youngest sibling that wasn't yet born. Due to his wife Ilya's delicate health, she almost died during childbirth, bringing Aegon into the world. After Aegon was born, the Maesters told Rhaegar that she would be unable to have any more children. At this point, Rhaegar may have told his wife about the prophecy, if he hadn't already, and how 3 heads of the dragon are needed, likely meaning he needed one more child. How he planned to go about that likely ties into what happened next. In 282 AC, Rhaegar took to the road with 6 of his closest friends, on a journey that led him to the Riverlands. Less than 10 leagues from Harrenhal, Rhaegar fell upon Lyanna Stark of Winterfell and carried her off. Rhaegar's actions led to a chain of events that started as civil war, Robert's Rebellion, which I have talked about extensively in other videos. What is important for this video is that for most of Robert's Rebellion, Rhaegar wasn't to be found. As Lyanna was found in a tower in Dorne at the end of the war, it is likely he was there with her. Late in the rebellion, Rhaegar would finally appear from the south, and at King's Landing, he persuaded his father to swallow his pride and summon Tywin Lannister for help. Rhaegar then began gathering an army. Before he left King's Landing, while putting on his armor in the yard of the Red Keep, he was approached by Jaime Lannister, a Kingsguard. Jaime pleaded with the prince to let another White Cloak, Darry or Barristan, guard the king, and let him go with Rhaegar. But Rhaegar shook his head and said, "My royal sire fears your father more than he does our cousin Robert. He wants you close, so Lord Tywin cannot harm him. I dare not take that crutch away from him at such an hour." A little later in this conversation, Rhaegar placed his hand on Jaime's shoulder and told him, "When this battle's done, I mean to call a council. Changes will be made. I meant to do it long ago, but, well, it does no good to speak of roads not taken. We shall talk when I return." Rhaegar left, leading a host along with 10,000 spears from Dorne who had come in defense of Rhaegar's wife Ilya. Rhaegar marched with his host up the King's Road to the Trident. There, the rebels led by Robert Baratheon, Jon Arryn, and Ned Stark fought Rhaegar and the Loyalists. In the middle of the battle, Robert Baratheon and Rhaegar found each other, and the two men clashed. Robert had his warhammer and great antlered helm. Rhaegar was armored all in black, and on his breastplate, a 3-headed dragon made with rubies that flashed like fire in the sunlight. The waters of the Trident ran red around the legs of their horses, and they circled and fought. Robert was wounded by the prince during the fight, but in the end, Robert's warhammer found its mark, and he drove the spike through Rhaegar's chest, scattering the costly rubies that were attached to his breastplate. Rhaegar died from this blow, a woman's name on his lips. Later, his body would be cremated, as is tradition for all fallen Targaryens, and the rubies that scattered from his armor caused the crossing to therefore be called Ruby Ford. When word arrived of Rhaegar's death, Aerys II sent his own wife, who was pregnant with Daenerys Targaryen, and son Viserys to Dragonstone to keep them safe. But to ensure the loyalty of Dorne, he kept Ilya Martell and Rhaegar's 2 children at King's Landing. This decision led to the death of Rhaegar's wife and children. After the Battle of the Trident, King's Landing was sacked by Tywin Lannister and his forces, who had betrayed Aerys. Aerys II was killed by his own Kingsguard Jaime Lannister, and at Tywin Lannister's orders, Rhaegar Clegane and Amori Lorch killed Rhaegar's children. Lorch dragged Rhaegar's daughter Rhaenys out from under her bed where she was hiding. Rhaenys kicked and screamed, so he stabbed her 100 times to shut her up. Clegane, a man Rhaegar had knighted, took the baby Aegon and dashed his head against the wall while Ilya watched. Still covered in the blood and brains of Aegon, he then raped Ilya and killed her, despite Tywin never giving him orders to harm Rhaegar's wife. Afterwards, Tywin Lannister presented the corpses of Rhaegar's wife and children, their bodies wrapped in the red cloaks of his house, to Robert Baratheon as a token of fealty. Something that pleased Robert, who didn't see dead children, but dragon spawn. There is an alternate tale to this, however, where Aegon never died, There's a story that Varys bought a tanner's son from Pisswater Ben, whose mother died birthing him. Varys gave the man a jug of Arbor Gold for the baby. The tanner had other sons, but had never tasted Arbor Gold, so he considered it a fair trade. Varys then gave the Pisswater infant to Ilya and carried her baby Aegon away to safety. The baby that Tywin claimed was Aegon was a faceless horror of blood, brain, gore, and a few pieces of fair hair. No one looked for long at the baby, and people took Tywin at his word that the child was Aegon. Is this story true? Is Rhaegar's son still alive? Or is the Aegon we know in the books a mummer's dragon? But there are many other questions to ask as well. Why did Rhaegar take Lyanna Stark? If you believe Robert Baratheon, Rhaegar abducted Lyanna and then raped her over and over. If you believe Daenerys Targaryen, Rhaegar and Lyanna were in love. There's also another question that some people ask, and quite a few people in the book seem to have their own opinion on. Could Rhaegar have had a different ending had he had a different wife? Cersei Lannister believes that if she had married Rhaegar, he would have never looked to Lyanna. Kevan Lannister, Tywin's brother, thinks the same thing as Cersei. Had Rhaegar married Cersei Lannister, he would have never looked twice at Lyanna. Viserys, Rhaegar's brother, blamed his sister for not being born soon enough, believing then Rhaegar would have married Daenerys and never would have become interested in Lyanna. Quite a few of our questions will likely be answered in The Winds of Winter, and before that, the show will likely answer what happened between Lyanna and Rhaegar. Whether George changes any of those details is to be seen. Or read. Thanks for watching the video. Liking the video is greatly appreciated. Come back for more Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire history videos, which are going to be on a less rigid schedule during the Game of Thrones season. Also, we're going to deviate from the north a bit for about another month. Afterwards, we'll go back to a more steady schedule. Have a fantastic week.